All right, it says I'm live right now. So yeah, I think it's good.
Ready to roll?
I think so. I think you probably just have to talk loud. I'm not sure, but it was the first take. We'll see how it goes.
Yeah. First.
Okay. It's 8:32, and I'm calling this meeting to order. First, we have the roll call. Brian Barker is absent. Andrew Cooper.
Here.
Catherine Hedgeman, not a board member, but anyway. Jamie Mager.
Here.
Brad Lewis, also not a board member. Brian Hanna.
Here.
And Paul Donnelly.
Also not a board member.
True. I gotta fix this. It's not right. Anyway, did I leave anybody out? No.
Yourself.
Oh yeah, me. I'm here.
Monica and Brian are excused, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Did everyone get a chance to read the minutes from the July meeting?
I saw one change that the seat hired Johnson Electrical, not Johnstone, to do the plumbing. It's item C at the bottom of 6, old business.
Johnson instead of Johnstone?
Yeah, it's just Johnson Electrical. They do both
Okay.
electrical and plumbing.
There also is one thing on the next meeting. If I'm looking at the latest version, I think there were 2 versions. I struggled to make sure I had the later one. It says the next meeting will be July 17th.
Should be August.
Yes. It's
August 21st.
August 21st.
Okay, any other corrections or modifications? Do I have a motion to pass the minutes?
I'll motion pass with those corrections.
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. I'm taking notes for Brian today, so I might be a little slow. Let's see. Brian and Andrew. Or was it the other way around?
Andrew.
Okay. Okay. First thing on our agenda is financial report.
I'll take that one. I give you guys probably a lot of extra information in the packet. So the first 2 pages are the bank account reconciliations for our Pioneer General account. So it has like the itemized transactions that we had. I should back up and say the cooperative, capital cooperative bookkeeping organization, if you look at the date on these reconciliation reports, they worked the last 2 days to get them done. It's at the top there. So that's why they came early this morning, because there was an issue with the amount of money we budgeted, and we'll go over that later. Our transactions from our Pioneer account journal entry. So that way you had that journal entry. It's at the 3rd page. So you can see all the expenses that we've had, and you can, if you have any questions on those. And of course, you can email me at any time if there's a specific request or question you have in terms of the expenses.
Right, these are just expenses that since you come on.
Right,
Checks are coming.
June and July, yeah. So last board meeting, we did up to May 31st, but we had to have a third or an independent person log my writing of the check into the accounting system. So that's why we moved with Capital Bookkeeping Cooperative. So they put these expenses in so that, there would be a.
Once you had access, they picked up from that.
Yes, exactly. And again, if you guys see something later, but I don't, there's a lot to go through. So I just wanted to provide you guys with these. The 4th page is Broadview the checking account. We don't have any action on that one yet. I haven't closed it out because I'm concerned that we might need to recall stuff for the audit for Bonadio. And I also wanted clarity if the board wanted me to do anything different with that one before we move forward.
What is that account for?
That's our ARPA, it's separate for the ARPA funds.
So we're waiting to replenish that before we
Mhm.
close up or do whatever.
Well, no, the third party audit from Bonadio, they might ask me, can you give me a detail on this number here, this check here? And I might need to go to the bank. I'm sure they would look in the past, but right now I can go to the teller and get information. So, until further directed, I know there was some information about that.
What is the expense that says automobile under?
Yeah, that was incorrect. I would put that under travel, but it was just the gas to get back from the land bank symposium
Oh, yeah.
in Oswego.
Yeah, I would reclassify that.
And
Were there tolls for that too, though?
there might have been, but maybe I incurred those costs.
I mean, it's an expense. I don't know.
Yeah,
I know that if it's easy pass, then you got to get to your
right.
account and you got to
right.
figure out which one is which. I mean, I do have
Mhm.
my job in this game.
Yeah.
I get you.
So there might have been other expenses, but I only paid for the gas to get back. That's it, with the company credit card. That expense is fifth page here. It's a great segue into there's a credit card. This is my credit card, and this is the reconciliation report for the credit card. Really, I'm just trying to show you guys the individual expenses so that you have clarity and that they can match with what our profit and loss statements say, and there's transparency. And of course, the 6th page, 7th page, and 8th page will be your profit and loss for year to date, profit and loss for July only, and then balance sheet. Of course, this is probably, without a treasurer and without having, a finance committee meeting, this might be a little bit extra information, but maybe it's just what you guys want as well. So, some direction from the board would be great to hear what you want to see monthly. In summary, in July, even year to date, but because of the land bank initiative award, LBI 1, July was a positive cash flow. It showed a gain, but really on the year we're down. There is a deferred revenue for ARPA funds, and I believe there are some expenditures that are ARPA qualified. And so when we recognize them in our accounting year to date for our profit and loss, it will go up. But
We previously, when we had a treasurer, did monthly profit and loss at the meetings. I don't know whose decision that was, or if we want to keep doing that, or
That's the bare minimum.
is that the bare minimum? Okay,
Yeah.
so then that's a good beginning point.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're all in much better shape than you were, but if there's a way to track or produce, and it doesn't have to be every month, but the grant,
Mhm.
like the expenditures, keeping an eye on LBI grant.
Per
grant.
each
Per class.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because they never really had the benefit of that for a lot of reasons, and as part of their oversight, that would be great to have. That's
Yeah.
Yeah,
just
well,
a detailed report.
particularly in consideration that there was some confusion. There has been confusion over. I mean, you've had said as much. Like, was that paid from which one, and is that
Mhm.
correct?
Mhm. Yep.
And how do we know that was correct? And so,
Mhm. Yeah.
ongoing monitoring. That sounds like a good idea to me too.
Mm-hmm.
But other than that, you don't have to do anything else, really.
The discussion will be on financials. Of course, you guys can email me anytime. You pretty much have the story with all those documents and all the transactions too. But the next with the yellow on it, this in an email, it's sort of what you're saying, except it doesn't detail the expenditures per class, because that is something that we can pull from QuickBooks Online, and that's kind of nice. But this is at least where we're tracking, and it just says, we have a $200,000 award that goes until September 20th of this year. We've requested $83,000, and we've actually received this morning the 13,000 that was the second draw. And so now that we've received that one, I'm going to go for the third draw, and the third draw amount is this 49,851,000, which will leave $66,752 for August and September. And I've sort of outlined the expenses I see going towards that. And of course, in yellow at the bottom, I said, this is what we might leave on the table unless we, I think that we can incur the website design. I've suggested, we have the website designer, but also,
Yeah, there's Joe Villanova.
yeah. And,
who's doing the hard stuff, and Deb Jackson, who's doing the artistic design.
Yep, those two. And then today I'm bringing to the table,
So
at
we
least,
have two separate.
Yeah,
Okay, one graphic designer basically, and then
Right,
another one who was
exactly.
okay, gotcha, building.
and then today I was bringing to the table another quote for the two properties that weren't able to get done for the first quote. These, yeah,
Spend it.
yeah, I'd rather spend it, especially when we can create, clean properties and a better compliance from a website perspective. So at least, that's why I just figured this is what we're looking at, and I wanted to give you guys information where we ended up with that.
I went down River Street yesterday. What is it, 834, 836?
Mhm.
Since that's been cleaned up, now miraculously the neighbors are cleaning up their yard. Yeah, like
Ago, I was up, and by the time I got back, the neighbor says to me, because he had seen me in the building previously, and he said, "My God, this is so great. Is there something going to happen with this?" I said, "Yes, there is." And you know what? It really does help the community. It's amazing.
And that's a rough part. That part of River Street.
Yeah.
That was a mess, partly because of us, but now that lot is like a million times better.
I do want to mention that now that Trey's is cleaned, I believe it's 836, which is the furthest one north.
Yeah.
That I was walking down the side of the building, and there's probably a tree that's 18 inches in diameter growing from the foundation of the building diagonally out of it.
So
Well, once we get through to September 20th, we might consider, getting a tree company to come out there. That might require a crane. I don't know. Maybe somebody can do it differently, but it's just going to grow into the foundation and cause it to collapse eventually. Just, once we're talking about it, might as well. Trey's was not tasked with taking every tree down. I told them, in the estimate, anything like 6 inches or smaller, if you could cut those down within reason. 3230, there were two trees that were growing into the back deck that we want to fix with the LBI2 funds. So he left those so that it didn't cause the deck to collapse. So the tree might be holding up the deck. We don't know.
I think it is.
But we're discovering this stuff, and we're moving forward. So
Okay. Anything else financially speaking? All righty. Well, you're still on.
I'm still on,
We're
okay.
going to move to the executive director's report.
So Bonadio's third-party audit, there's still two things on the table, which I'm pretty confident I'll be able to do. And then I just have to supply them with receipts for 6 items in the beginning of this year that they just want to see the checks for to make sure the largest expenses we have. But then after that, we'll see if they give me more comments.
And this audit is for.
Right. Well, the parish report is generated from the audit.
Okay.
Yeah, you have to put in the numbers, the final numbers from the audit to even access the report. So,
Okay.
yeah, that's why, I'm surprised we haven't gotten a letter, but, we're okay right now.
Mm-hmm.
Kate, when's this supposed to be completed by?
March 30th.
So we're on par. We're pretty consistent with previous years with scheduling.
No.
I'm joking.
Oh,
I'm
okay.
joking.
Okay.
I'm joking.
Okay.
Like, well, I thought we got some pretty much on time.
Yeah, no.
I'm like, okay.
Yeah, no. I thought you were talking about,
For the
next
record,
year.
no.
I mean, usually we're right on time. It was just, there was nothing to audit. It was, the books were just in a rough spot. So once I have the audit, and a list of properties, because we have to disclose that, we'll be able to log in and do it. It doesn't take very long, when the information is clear, like this financial information, that makes it way more easier. We used to have to sift through, like we had to get access to QuickBooks and pull numbers out that it was,
Wow.
just because the financials, you couldn't really rely on it per se.
Still keep breaking that.
Yeah, like they ask questions like all expenses over $5,000.
Sure.
So you got to pull the contracts, you got to say, all that
That's a lot of
stuff. Yeah, so when it's readily available because your books look good, it makes it, oh, okay, this line is this number and what's the detail behind that makes it a lot easier.
Yeah, you're able to click and it brings up, if you see a number on a report, you can click the number and it tells you how the numbers were added up in a report. So
At one point, we had $800,000 in miscellaneous.
Mm.
And the
Wow.
I didn't
Wow.
get
So
a W. I didn't get a 1099 this year, and nobody did because the books weren't set. But you couldn't really 1099 people properly. And if you looked, there was 3 entries for even my law firm, and they had all different numbers. So now that the books are in much better shape, it should be really easy to do all that.
yeah, so hopefully you can meet March 30th this year. 31st.
Yeah, that shouldn't be.
Yeah.
We're gonna be a little late with this one, but
Yeah.
When's that expected to actually get done? Is there a target date?
well, the audit's almost done. As
It
soon
sounds like they, with only 2 comments left, and one being they just want to see this year. The reason they want to see this year's 5 transactions is because they want to see if we had a liability. So we owed the money and accounts payable for last year that we need to journalize and then pay off instead of just expensing it on this year. It should be liable for last year. And then the ARPA thing is they just don't want us to fall behind on keeping track with ARPA expenses. But otherwise, it seems like if they don't have any other comments, those are just 2, for them, it's probably an hour's worth of work once I give them their information.
When does the process normally start to be able to deliver on the March 30th?
So once this audit is complete, we'll ask them, maybe we can try to get them here in September to present the audit to the board for 23. And then November 1st, we have to file a budget with the authority's budget office. So September, October, the November meeting is usually when we approve it. It has to be filed December 1st. So the next couple months will be budget months, and that's how we start to get on track. The budget gets filed by December 1st, and then once the year closes, we engage the auditors and get them. Usually we're down to the wire. It might be the 3rd Wednesday in March, but that's not an issue when we've already been starting the Paris report and we're just waiting for the numbers. And then it can get submitted. So that's kind of historically what we've done.
Keeping organization, they're local. They started in Troy, but I think they might be setting up shop in Albany in a shared space right now. But with how quickly they were able to deliver those 2 months, I suspect that they'll be able to January meeting have 2024 wrapped up for January 25. They'll be able to say this is what happened last year within reason, but
It's great. It's really great. Okay, 791.
And just briefly, I'll talk about B. I know we talked about compliance, but of course, because of the audit, we were able to all generate more meeting minutes and agendas from last year. And I know there were a lot of months we didn't meet, but we were able to upload those to the website. And so we at least have some meeting minutes online for 2023. There was a resolution from 2023. So I was able to put all those up for now. I know we're switching to a new website, but I think we're getting closer to compliance. We're working towards it. And I just want to at least mention that. 791 River Street. We have the plumbing's in, but the big change is that the sprinkler system, according to the city, is not installed, but it is installed. So the problem is the original contractor did not submit plans for a sprinkler system, and they got the foundation approved, they got the rough framing approved, but by the time they asked for an inspector to come back, they had everything enclosed, including the sprinkler system. And so they could never get the final because there was never a sprinkler system permit. So technically speaking, from where we are, we see a sprinkler system. From where the city is, there's not a design and not a permit, so therefore they can't inspect what's not permitted to be put in. So what we have to do is find a sprinkler system installer to design the sprinkler system that is already in place and make sure that it can function properly and that it, there's enough sprinkler heads, that the pipes are the right size. And if it is all good, then we can, he can give us a set of plans, we can get a permit, they can come down and look at the way it's built is acceptable to the set of plans, and then they can give us our inspection at that point. So I spoke with Jamie about this and Suzanne, but Jamie has a connection. She sent me some support documentation, which is a text message, but it's what we have right now.
I wondered what this is.
Yeah.
What am I looking at?
Well, we have to find a sprinkler system, and one person he knew said they might be $2,500 to $3,000 to do, drawings, hydraulic calculations, inspections, make sure the pipe sizes are adequate until design, that sort of stuff, and then check for water pressure and that sort of thing. So currently, I don't think we have a budget for sprinkler systems. So I think, any additional changes, since this isn't part of SEAT's original contract, any additional changes the board has to approve.
And so we don't have a.
Sorry, I was gonna say, did you say it was part of seed or was not?
It was not.
Okay.
Yeah.
And there's not a plan anywhere that we know of. I mean,
So,
No.
here's where we're at with it. Code
Design build.
is claiming, code is stating that the building permit was issued and a sprinkler permit was to follow. Now, typically in the past, code has, because sprinkler design could take longer, will accrue additional expenses. Our building department has issued a building permit for construction with the anticipation that the sprinkler design and calcs and everything will be submitted later. But then the contractor is expected, once you are at the point of sprinkler inspection, once it has to be approved, first of all, your specs have to be approved by a licensed designer. Once it's approved, then it has to be inspected. So we did start the construction process correctly, but the way I understand it is Mr. Diadamo skipped over a lot of steps in the inspection process and went and buttoned up the sprinkler system that was installed. This quote is from Matthew Sprinkler System, who he installs probably 90% of the sprinklers for mid-size projects like ours in the city of Troy. He was able to locate the original sprinkler installer, who he installed most of the pipes, according to whoever Tim is. That's the original installer. Him and Mr. Diadamo had a falling out. Tim left. Tim was unaware that it was even finished. At that point, we believe that Tony brought in someone else to finish it, and then it was buttoned up. So it was explained to me yesterday that Matthew Sprinkler can come in. They would like us to submit them a floor plan of the building so he can get a lay of the land before he comes in. He wants to do a walkthrough first. Then he wants to come back with Tim and have Tim recollect what was in there. They would like to do it without cutting holes in the wall because they know where we're at to try and save us some expenses. If not, Seth's going to use his experience and open up holes where he believes things should be, just to make sure the right size piping is there, the heads are hooked up, before he charges the system. Based off of what Tim did in Seth's experience, he believes he can give us a drawing. Tim also stated yesterday that Tony does have a drawing. Tony has a drawing somewhere. So I don't know if I don't think we're in a position to reach out to him because of what happened. Maybe we could rely on code to see if we can get a copy of that drawing, just for have something for Seth to reference. If not, he will do a design build for us. He'll do all the calcs that code needs, and he'll pressure test the line to make sure that it operates correctly. Again, as you can tell from this is simply a text message. I told him, I said, just give me a ballpark figure for something I can bring to the board tomorrow. Honestly, I think I don't know what else we do. Like somebody has to design a sprinkler system. Like we're at the CO point now. This is kind of crazy. But I understand where code's at. Like nothing, Tony never supplied anything, so we got to fall in the sword.
You mentioned just quickly that code might have a drawing plan.
Code does. Tony, code has a copy of our floor plan.
Okay.
Of the initial plan submitted for the building permit. We need to ask for them to give to Seth, if we can, to give him a lay of the land before he walks into a building that he's never seen before. Mm-hmm. That's what code should have on file. Tony Diadamo, the original architect, then GC, apparently has a sprinkler sketch that he did.
Okay.
He did the sprinkler design. Whoever Tim is did the installation, the partial installation. We don't know who did the completion. For all we know, Tony could have been spinning wrenches, but I trust in code will, what Seth says code will accept. Seth's family has been in the sprinkler business for many years.
Maybe TAP might have it.
Barb's going to reach out. to
So
Tony.
yeah,
I'm wondering.
they spoke yesterday.
We have from the litigation. I have all the TAP's markup, like the plans, everything.
Okay.
Their punch list, because what they did is they took the architectural plans produced by Adamo, and they marked it up with what needed to be fixed in the process of in contemplation of litigation. So I'm wondering if there is sprinkler on there.
Apparently, and honestly,
It might just be architectural.
I don't know this. Apparently, it's two separate permits. I did not know that until yesterday.
Yeah.
That department is claiming that they did not see a sprinkler design. Hopefully, Tony did forfeit.
Well, my institutional knowledge is this. Tony and I tried to foil documents from the city at one point because we did not have anything, and the city did not respond. And this was during the COVID period, but still. This fell through the cracks with the city because it was COVID and nobody was coming out. So I think there was pressure to get the building done, and so they closed it up, which was.
So do you think that that's why inspections may or may not have been done?
That's right. That's exactly
and
right.
we got to sheetrock over sprinkler heads.
That's exactly right. And I mean, at the end of the day, somebody made that call.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know who did, whether it was Tony or the Tony Diadamo.
Yeah.
I really don't know. But when we started to pull things together on the project, we didn't have. I only have copies of one permit, and that was the first building.
The building permit.
So I'm just thinking in terms of the documents I had for litigation. I don't recall a sewer system.
When you foil stuff, did you foil plan? You were able to foil the plans?
Well, we wanted.
Architectural drawings, I should say.
No, we didn't need to because TAP had them.
They already had.
Yeah, what we were trying to get is what permits were pulled,
Gotcha.
because we knew, Tony knew, Tazi, that we didn't have copies of any of that, and we wanted to know had it been inspected.
Mm-hmm.
And the city even, I want to say from 2020 when the declaration hit, would have been March, right on through to the end of 2021, they weren't doing anything. And I think the pressure was to get the building done, and somebody made the call to do it. But Tony Tazi and I both knew there was no inspection of anything, the plumbing, the electrical, none of it.
So where it leaves us is if we do have a quote come in from Seth, then we would have to approve it at the next board meeting in order to get him to move forward unless we allocate money.
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion to allocate up to $5,000 for whatever expenses we accrue to get approved sprinkler drawings, sprinkler test to get us to the CO.
Does that fall under our remaining LBI funds?
No,
No, because this
No.
is,
yeah, that's operating, not capital
Right.
improvement.
right.
And Paul will explain how hard it would be if we wanted to do that for capital improvement. Take a couple months.
So we do or we don't know if TAP has any designs.
Barb and I have been talking, as well as Barb and Jamie have been talking, and she's about where we are with the whole thing. She understands everything that we understand, and so she's in the same place of recommending Seth. And
Well, even if they had something, we don't know if they have the calculations in there. If they have,
well,
right?
so
I don't know what else even
yeah,
in
you
a
go.
sprinkler plan.
I
But
don't think
It's
we
only
have
a
it separate.
If there's
Yeah.
anything, it's only a sketch. Tony D'Adamo cannot produce calculations.
Yeah, so
It's simply a drawing.
So there's the biggest issue with the city and any sprinkler system company is liability. And so
Right.
when we sell this building and the city says it's good for people to live in, if that sprinkler did not go off when it's supposed to, and it was never properly designed, the city wants to point to the designing company.
course.
So essentially we're buying insurance from Seth
Yeah.
that the current system is correct.
and he has to sort of reverse engineer it based on what's
Right. He's going to design it as it is and modify if necessary, which
and then and I'm just thinking, and then test it and see if it actually
Yeah.
Right.
somewhere.
right.
And I don't want to think about that. I would say I second the motion. However, I don't know.
Just wanted some clarity. So what you found out was 2,500 to 3. Your proposal of up to 5 is to give Brad permission to go up to 5 for
Yeah.
unforeseen circumstances or expenses that come out of the work that is started.
Mhm.
Buffer of 3 to 5 is okay. Now I need to make an adjustment. It's going to cost this.
Right.
Yeah.
So the 5.
Just that they need to be.
The heads aren't the right
If
size.
there's
He's got to
holes.
change. He's got to
Like, say we
do
got
holes
open
and
holes.
patch, and
Okay.
yeah.
And I think 5 is that's the cap, right? Yeah, that's why I chose 5, and because we shouldn't be spent this month. We should not be doing this, quite frankly. But we have to do it to sell. We have no choice other than to do this.
I think 7,500 can get to. I think there's a procurement at 7,500 where above that we have to RFP it.
Well, I'll stick to my original
Yep.
motion of 5 because at least he can get started and get a lot done prior to next meeting. If we have to come back and ask for more, but for 5, he can. He was adamant, based on his discussions with Barb and Tim, that we can get this done. The one positive I took from the conversation is that in his dealings with the Adamo, he typically oversizes his sprinkler systems. So he was pretty confident that there are adequate sprinkler heads in the building. So that was the one positive thing I took from it. Commercial space is wide open. Did I speak correctly when I told him that?
Well, besides the sheetrock barrier at the top,
What are the heads hanging below?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
I think they are. Oh my word.
Where else would they be?
Well, they could be buried too.
Oh, you mean under the sheetrock?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the heads are in the rock rather than because it's a commercial space. I thought maybe they suspended them like
Oh,
8 to 10 inches below the
Yeah.
lid.
gotcha.
But I spoke without actually knowing to Seth because I see the pipes going up the wall. I anticipated that they were hanging below, and because it's commercial, it doesn't have to look as pretty inside the lid.
I think they're there, but I can verify that.
I mean, they're there. It doesn't matter. I
Yeah.
just thought I'd
Visible.
let Seth know.
Okay. So
I still second.
Yes, I got that. I was just
I
going to
appreciate the follow-up questions.
We'll put this up for a vote. All in favor of hiring Matthew sprinklers and getting plans, et cetera, et cetera. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
All right. So otherwise, I believe 791 will be able to get a CO. There is if there's an alarm on the sprinkler system, there we need to have a monitoring agreement with the sprinkler company. I think that's a unique thing, or maybe it's not unique, but sprinklers aren't necessarily my forte.
TAP is actually working on investigating some of that for
Yep.
some of my projects. So let's use TAP as a resource.
Yep.
If we need that
Mhm.
alarm, if
Yep.
we actually do need that alarm system.
Yeah. So otherwise, as long as the third party electrical inspection hearsay is that it's done, I just need to go over and look at the panel to make sure there is a sticker. But as long as that's done, the sticker's there where the film is off the windows outside. There was a little bit of residue from when the film came off, and C is trying to get Johnson Electrical to come back, and Joe does not seem like he's upset at all. So probably go back over, but he said he got yelled at by a National Grid truck because they were taking a right-hand turn, and he had his bucket truck there cleaning it out. And I said, well, that's just a driver. They could yell, so you can still be there. But so he didn't seem upset or anything. He seemed very amicable. So he'd probably go back over there and clean the film off, or the goo and dirt on the glue type stuff.
Has there been any challenges as far as damage to the property, anything like that? Just sitting there as long as it has.
I think a car ran into a window one time.
Yeah, haven't we replaced the windows twice? I want to say twice. Like just once on the door.
The
Yep.
door.
Like
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like it's twice.
There's
Yeah.
an
The
issue
trauma
that they
is
didn't-
real.
They didn't have enough of the masonry material to finish in the first place, so then it got left out, and then window got broken, and then they boarded it up, and that's where it was for many years.
Yeah.
Ironically, no.
Yeah,
That you would
that's-
think
I didn't know if
in
it-
that location.
as long as
Yeah, nobody
proactive
broke in or
measures,
stole
yeah.
anything,
Mhm.
unlike other places.
From that property.
Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah. So the next thing is just a PR thing, neighborhood meetings. There are different neighborhoods in the city of Troy meet. I've scheduled some times with a couple of them, reached out to all of the ones that I know about. District 3 and District 5 really don't have meetings, but they have community places where you can attend. Like last Sunday, I was at the Mount Ida brunch at top of Congress Street, and of course, talking to people about the land bank. But I just asked those neighborhoods to host me to discuss what we're doing at the land bank, what's our updates, so that they don't. I was at the Troy 100 forum a couple months ago, and somebody said, I wasn't even sure the land bank was still a thing because Barb Nelson was talking about our facade program from the stage. And I said, yes, it is a thing. I'm involved there. So I thought it would be a good idea to go to those meetings just to discuss what we're doing, what our funding sources are, explain to people this is state funded and that we have a sustainable path forward. And I wanted to have something tangible to hand them. And I could write up a sheet of paper similar to this monthly meetings, and that's fine too. But I thought that it would be nice to have some sort of like designs on like bubbles or something. I don't know how a designer would do it, but this is what we're doing. This is what our grants are. Okay. Yeah. I mean, allocate some money to that. That would be helpful to me to give somebody something physical. And my first meeting is the 27th at the Downtown Business Improvement District Quality of Life Committee at the Ruck. And so the next one was supposed to be the 10th of September, but I have kindergarten first day. So I'm going to try to do October 8th for Osgood neighborhood. But of course, I would like to have something tangible to give them. So I didn't know if.
Yeah, it's as simple. It could be as a palm card. It could be a trifold. It could be, anything along those lines.
We had something like that in the past,
Yeah,
didn't
we
we?
did. We had
I'm
a
sure
trifold.
A trifold, yeah, not probably have to be.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I would go light on that kind of stuff. I mean, most people they need to know we have state funding or we have
Mhm.
multiple funding sources. I don't know if you,
No, keep it kiss flush.
yeah, because people are like, well, I
yeah,
don't know.
yeah.
Yeah,
You don't want to get
You're in the
too deep.
weeds.
I mean,
Yeah.
I feel like you've self-confessed. That's often your perspective on things.
Yeah, I love the
So
weeds.
I don't feel bad cautioning in that area.
So Brad, okay, I'll talk to her when we get home and.
Sure.
Approve.
I don't have any
Right.
funds to spend, so I don't want to misstep and write a blank check to somebody.
No, this is certainly something that we need anyway, so now that we're back. Okay, Best in Housing Award?
Yeah. Are we going to make, just to clarify, are we going to make a motion to appropriate the money?
Yeah, we can do that.
It's just, I think that's, I don't know, maybe Kate will recommend.
I think it's fine. What I was gonna say overall, and this is just a revisit, and I think as we get new board members, we should revisit a lot of the policies, but technically Brad has authority up to a certain amount to spend. The caveat here is the budget was never really approved overall, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you all kind of weren't aware of what that was. So I don't think there's any harm for transparency purposes, the way he's, asking you to approve it. But you normally wouldn't have to,
Right.
you know what I mean?
Right, I follow.
Once I think we get the budget in place for next year and you're all comfortable with that, I think it's up to $75,000 or $10,000 that you have authority
Right.
within the budget.
This is a couple $100 line.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
So are we
But it's
gonna
just-
make a motion to spend $250?
I think you do have
Yeah,
to.
I understand
he
for
would
his-
feel
For
better.
Brad's
Okay, that's
comfort,
what-
you
that's
want
fine.
that, and I think that's acceptable.
Yeah.
Like,
I'll make a motion to appropriate up to $250 for
He said five.
literature to promote the language.
And Kate was just making a point. I put 500 there, but for
I
designer,
didn't see it.
yeah.
So
I mean, for design costs could eat that up quick. I mean, that's
Right.
They could.
and then printing cost is not cheap either. It depends how many we print, but
Sure,
more is cheap
Mhm.
per.
I would like to make a motion for $500 for literature and promotion of the language.
Any second?
I would second that, and I think that's maybe sufficient for development and maybe, but not printing. Like we probably want to see something first anyway, right?
Well, this is happening in a week.
Well, I don't know. I don't think that timeline's going to happen,
Do you have
unfortunately.
business cards?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh,
Just
business
another-
cards.
I would you might want to approve him up to like 2,500 or something. You know what I
Or
mean? Because
miscellaneous
Yeah.
communication needs
I mean,
and
it's
promotion.
because it's got to happen so quickly.
Mhm.
That's the point.
Is it, and it's
Normally,
acceptable to approve? I mean, I know even the
Well, it's
approval
otherwise he's
part.
got to come back to the board.
Yeah, for every
time
single-
For
Yep.
250.
Are you, well, here's the question. Would you be
$500 or
comfortable if
whatever
we
it
give you
might
a
be.
broader, like,
You can. And now to clarify, the owl budget line item was 1,000. I spent 400. I don't need to buy a second owl. So,
right?
I'm going to be a good steward of whatever you appropriate. And I don't believe in wasting the money, because I know that every dollar that we spend on anything extra is another dollar we can't maintain our properties for. So, that's the mission of what we're doing.
But marketing is important to me.
Of course. Yeah. Of course.
I guess my ask would be, for consistency, I looked at the website design yesterday. I thought it was it's great. I love the way it looks. Is there an opportunity for us to try and stay consistent? Where when you look at the website or you look at a pamphlet that you're handing out, there's the consistency there. So
The logo at the top.
If
If
I
we
may, I have about 30 years experience in advertising and marketing. And I'm sharing that experience as much as I can with Brad, who was also very formidable as far as advertising and promotion is concerned. And I think that it's truly important that the brand stays, as consistent as possible. I understand there's a new logo in the works, so that's obviously a starting tool, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you have to stop everything else, whether it's website development, trifold brochures, or whatever the case might be. So I agree with you. Don't go too fast, but go fast enough so we can at least get some literature out to community events that people just don't know what we're doing. And to communicate that is, I think, extraordinarily important.
Yeah,
Suzanne,
Suzanne.
the person you're gonna have work on these palm cards would be Deb, who has done the website. Right?
Correct.
So she can stay consistent with,
Oh, yeah.
like the
Or even
like
reuse
what
some of
Brian
the
said, yeah.
design outlets. Yeah.
that streetscape with our logo. If it's something like that, explaining LBI, whatever
Yeah.
you guys.
Oh, yeah, that's her profession. So she's good at that. Great. Okay.
So we didn't get a motion
Oh, yeah, we have
for
to
a certain
vote.
number
We got Jamie made the motion, Andrew seconded. So
for
For
$500.
500, but do we want to?
you want to
broaden the-
25?
Yeah.
Yes, I
I-
would,
Great.
I would like to amend my motion of 500 to up to 2,500 for.
Okay. All in favor? Aye.
And I still second, and if that's
Yes,
needed.
I got that.
Okay.
So all in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
All right. The Spring Best in Housing Awards. This is an idea I had for, just playing offense with the land bank. It's as simple as doing the same thing with these neighborhood meetings, asking them to put up people that are preserving the housing stock, projects that have, maybe code will know about good projects or something like that, and have an independent third party, group of people vote on the best in what neighborhoods, and then just present them with an award in the spring. I wanted to partner with Mount Ida Preservation Hall because they have a large sanctuary upstairs. And, I just wanted to sort of encourage people to invest in our neighborhoods and, celebrate them when they do it. So I don't know all the details yet. I think, speaking from my gut, I'd like to, offer up paying for the awards, which might be like $500 or $1,000, but that might be the extent of what we do. The liability would fall on Mount Ida Preservation Hall, their sanctuary. They might charge a fee for the people not getting the awards to come. They might have refreshments there, and they might do a bunch of stuff. For transparency, I am on the board of Mount Ida, so I think they're going to move forward with this, whether we're involved or not. But I think if we're involved, it will be good for us. We don't need a motion today. It's
So this-
going to,
Yeah, I mean, I just,
yeah.
It's a good thing to put on.
yeah, that's what
I
I'm
think-
saying.
Yeah.
We've done it in the past. I forget for what, but I think there was a sponsorship, like there was a housing, first time home buyer like fair, for lack of a better word.
Sure.
And I think we did sponsor that, like you're saying, like we paid for awards or whatever, different things. So yeah, I mean, you can do that.
And, I'm sort of thinking things like some people that I know from the community. Julian Adams is a, preservation person from downtown Troy. Sloan, people know her. She's in the State Historic Preservation Office on Brunswick on Route 2. Kara Macree's Director of Preservation. She lives on Maple down the street from me. And maybe Suzanne would want to do it too. You're a preservation historian. But being able to judge the projects and present an award, it would at least create some sort of sense of you're honored for the work you do in the community.
It's great alignment with what we're trying to achieve.
I think so.
That's good.
So there's nothing yet. Just
We had a marketing committee and we're right here. That would be great. Okay, we can talk about this.
Yeah.
I did. So let's move on to Paul's report on LBI 2.
Okay, LBI 2, obviously is our grant from the Housing Trust Fund Corporation. This packet that I'm holding, and I can overview a copy of it. It's really intensive reading, not really, but there are 14 hit notes for every single project that we do that we have to go through. We have to go through historical, cultural resources, floodplain management, zoning, coastal management zones, site contamination, lead-based paint, asbestos-containing materials, radon, wetlands, endangered species, agriculture districts, and smart growth. The good news is on every single LBI 2 project that we have, we've achieved every single aspect on here with the exception of site contamination and hazmat. And that is purposely put last because we've been trying to communicate with hazmat individuals. Obviously, our approach was first to try to save the land bank money. And we attempted to utilize the services of Russ Reeves here at the city. Russ, unfortunately, is not qualified to put his name on the piece of paper we need to submit to the Housing Trust Corporation. So Brad and I collectively have sought out others, some suggested by the trust fund. And we've come to a few conclusions. One is that there is a few local folks who are just, let's just say, a little more prepared to work within the constraints of a budget that Brad and I believe is reasonable to obtain this. And all we need from them is a simple statement that is listed in the booklet here. And the reason this statement must be exact is because it was designed by the attorneys for the trust corporation, and it cannot deviate at all whatsoever. We've looked at some pricing. We've seen something as low as $750 per building to get that done. That seems low, but Brad and I, again, we feel fiduciary responsibility to try to shop and get the best deal possible. Noon today, we're meeting with a gentleman who does know Brad, and I have spoken to him as well, who's probably willing to do this for half that price. So that's the good news there. Regarding a couple of other things that we needed to give to the trust fund, we need to work with the city. Code has been phenomenal with us. They provided us a letter letting us know that there are no encumbrances on the properties that we have regarding to code or zoning, planning, etc. That's basically where we are. We have 9 projects in the hopper. 6 of them have been approved by SHPO. Everybody familiar with SHPO?
Mhm.
Okay, just make sure. And we're just awaiting approval on 3 others. So every single project is active right now.
I'm trying to remember what they are. What are
I'll give you the
the,
list.
Through these projects, then we can submit our environmental compliance checklist, which then HCR, who administers the Housing Trust Fund, can tell us if we can proceed with the projects.
You mentioned you saw prices as low as, $750, but you might be able to go lower with this gentleman. Is there a deal that can be cut because there's a certain volume?
We're hoping. I think this is along the lines of the volume of doing that kind of thing. And I'll caution you when we're dealing with the environmental folks and engineering firms. And here's the caution. A dear friend of mine, Joe Palcinello, he owns Inland Professional Corp out of Boston. He's a licensed site professional in New York State as well. What a lot of these firms try to do is get you, as opposed to what we want is a site assessment, they try to get you to a phase 1. So a phase 1 is a lot larger than that, much more costly than that. And they'll try to use language in a report that they give you, which is public record once they file that report, and then gets you to a phase 2. And then all of a sudden, we're consuming our budget like crazy just to get a piece of paper so that we can get funding. And that's the road we do not want to go down under any. It's given me a wealth of knowledge as far as dealing with the engineering community, especially when it relates to hazmat.
that is correct.
Thanks.
And
The voice of experience is speaking.
Chris is an engineer who's currently rehabbing
It's
a
to
house.
get to the closing, not to prevent the closing.
Right,
He's-
right. Well, I always say you really want to get a phase 1 because it's double-edged sword. If it's fine, you're all set. If it's not,
Right.
can of worms.
Right.
So can I interrupt?
Please.
Exactly what are we getting from them? What does the paper say?
I'm going to give you the exact language of what the paper says. It's got to be on their letterhead. It's got to show their qualifications. And what it needs to say in these exact words is the project site is free of hazardous materials, contamination, toxic chemicals and gases, and radioactive substances, which could affect the health and safety of occupants or users or conflict with the intended utilization of the property. I, we'll say Joe Palcinello, certify that I am an environmental professional as per ASTM 1527. That's what it needs to say.
I would get a copy of his professional license.
Oh,
insurance
yes, right.
Because.
Obviously. And then we need to put a couple statements in that.
Well, that's only if it's not. There is this.
If there
If there is,
right.
if
there
there's
is, then
something found, there's a language for that.
Then we get down to a whole other series
Because
as
he
you're
has
going
to.
from.
Yeah.
Which is fine.
But that gets into, they have to do, it's not just, putting it on paper, there's testing that goes ahead of that.
I think
Well-
this is different than testing.
It's a little different. than
This is
testing.
basically saying you should
This-
consider testing or you should not
This
consider
uses
testing.
a lot of historical stuff that's online with the EPA, along with other conservation agencies, whether they be maps, whether there was a dry cleaner, a gas station, or a light cleaner scenario. So that's why we're careful never to use the phase one word. We use site assessment, because site assessment means we don't want to spend phase one money. And I'm making that clear to people when I have that discussion. Because the first thing out of Labella's mouth, who is one of the approved engineers on the list, was, "Oh, you need." No, I do not need phase one. I do not need to spend $5,000. I am not going to.
Well, we might if we
It could
move
happen,
forward, if
right.
the site assessment yields there is hazardous materials,
Right.
then we need to figure out.
If there was an active spill, they're gonna look at all the public record. and all
Sure,
that.
sure. Tanks, etc.
Buried oil tank is what I'm
Yeah.
thinking.
That's the big
But,
one.
you know, the
And that's
thing
why
is-
I called Joe,
I like
because that's
it
what he
for-
did.
There isn't a client that I've had that has not had an underground storage tank.
But the
So it's-
projects,
Why did they ever do that?
the projects we're doing are not excavation projects.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
We're doing. I
Once
mean,
you're
you,
moving earth, the whole game changes.
you can tell them the projects just to recap
Yeah, sure.
the 8 projects.
All right, project one is 3209 7th Avenue. We have a potential budget of $15,000. The work that needs to be done includes sistering up floor joists and or replacing them near a roof drain that was a terrible leak, I guess, for quite some time. And install new subfloors for all 3 floors to get that red X off the building so that it's safe for firefighters and obviously gets us closer to the point where we can dispose of the property, etc. 3211, exactly the same scope of work, exactly the same potential budget. 3229 6th Avenue is install back deck and stairs to make it safe for firefighters, install subfloors where needed. In inspection in that building, the subfloors probably need about 10 sheets of plywood. And quite honestly, I would have been more than happy to take a couple of screws and pin them down. But the fact is that there's water damage in that plywood, and that's got to be replaced. There's just no way around it. 3230 6th Avenue, right across the street. We need to stabilize the back deck and make it safe for firefighters and repair the foundation. The potential budget is $33,000. In my best view, I don't know that we'll be able to stabilize that back deck. Again, there's a tree potentially holding up half of it. If we can, well, then that'll be the way the RFP is written. And if we can't, obviously that'll change. 32 Glen Avenue needs a new roof. Potential budget is $30,000. 32 Glen needs work on the east wall foundation. The wall is actually pushing and caving, and it tilts in, I'd say, about 12 to 14 inches. So that's got to be done.
So these are the 2 bundles we had that we sent the letter out and said we're not moving forward with.
Right.
Okay. 'cause
Some
I
of them-
recognize the
some of
address.
them, yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
785 River Street, it needs a new roof. 785 River Street, it says remove debris from basement. Now, I was in that basement, and I strongly suggest no one goes back down there again. There are just piles and piles of really nasty stuff. I don't need to get too descriptive on that, but it needs to be done before anything's going to happen with that building. We have 17 Park. That needs a new roof as well. And that potential budget is $30,000. We're looking at a total potential budget of $258,000 for LBI 2 modifications. That's where we are.
Or maybe a little more. I think we've adjusted that.
Yeah, right.
That's
I
the
think
that's
there
the
is an
older one.
adjust- it
But
is
I
the older
emailed that in our documents to the board, so you guys will have that in your email.
So the process, where we start with this is, we start with assessing the building. First and foremost, yes, I do wear different costumes. So you'll see me go into a building and assess things like the joist and the plywood and this, or whatever the case might be, along with pictures. Pictures are a big, big deal to SHPO and to the trust. Okay, if we can't show them, we're going to have problems. In my first submission, they did request, could we receive additional pictures? Once we got through that first submission to SHPO, they're like, okay, You're good.
So pictures of existing conditions
Mhm.
opposed to
Existing.
what it looks like afterward, or both?
No, just existing.
I'm sure they'll ask for
Right.
the end. No, I see.
Right, and they're very nice to work with. I have to say that. In one particular instance where we need to put a new back deck on, and I believe that's 3229 Sixth Avenue, because there is no deck and there is no rear access. She said to me, "Do me a favor, send me a drawing, a rendering, or even a picture of what you expect there." So I went to another building, took a shot of what I expect to see in a deck, basically an 8x10 with a set of stairs coming down, et cetera, et cetera. And they said, it's fine. So these folks want to work with us. They want to see it go forward. They really do. And I think, well, the folks over at SHPO, especially them, in hopes that this will develop an even better release in fiscal 25.
Are you able to keep on file, like the version of what good looks like, for future assessments when it's like, hey, here's current condition and here's what like you might have a stock, almost like a stock photo of 8x4 of like,
Right.
yeah, that's what we hope, or is it, like.
No, I mean, I think if in a position where I just was with that deck, I would just have to go for that and achieve that and then send that to them. Everything else is an actual photo of existing conditions.
Okay.
And we'll be able to take photos and put we've created a Google shared drive between Paul and I, and Paul's uploading the documents for each project we're doing under a bigger folder called LBI 2, which is the program that the Housing Trust Fund is using to.
The one thing I would just mention, and I made myself a note, at one point, the board, and this is several years ago now, looked at standards that we would require from any person rehabbing our process, our properties.
Mhm.
And we're going to be selling properties and working on bundles with the LBI. There has to be certain standards whoever buys it has to meet. You remember what I'm talking about? Like the
Standards of the purchaser?
No, yeah, like in other words, if you're gonna rehab the property, you gotta use X grade materials. You have to have.
I remember many
Yeah.
discussions about it.
Yeah.
I don't know if we ever had
that's,
it.
that's akin to a city of Detroit with a reverter, basically. I mean, when you buy a building from the city, they're going to give you rid of if XYZ PDQ isn't done within a period of time. Then this is null and
We
void.
don't have the reverters anymore. Monica and I got that removed.
Okay.
So what I'm talking about is our grant. Our grant agreement requires the properties to be rehabbed to a certain level.
Right.
So I'll see if I can find those as a place to start, but I know
That'd be great.
HCR in particular has their own.
Mhm.
And so any developer, for lack of a better word, that we work with, I think we got to have that. Where the expectation is right on top of it is when you have an active project, the whole timeline of inspections pursuant to our
Sure.
policies.
Mhm.
Sure.
So I think we got to pull all that out because now you're doing great things.
Yeah, we definitely going to need that
Yeah.
because once we get these approvals on the environmental, it's green light time, and I want to get to RFPs and I want projects moving.
All right, so I will see if I can find those.
Thank you.
We'll take a look at the grant and what HCR is going to require, or the Land Bank Initiative is going to require. And then I want to show you what the application says about inspections, so you know.
Thank you.
And I think that'll start the process.
Kate, when you
Yeah.
find those HCR standards, can you, do you mind emailing me a copy?
Yeah, I'll email it to
Only
everybody.
because the standards, I think is something we absolutely need to, that prevents absentees from coming in and taking over our properties. I just, my only hiccup would be I don't want them to be too stringent, right?
Well, that's what I'm saying. It's going to be a requirement of when you use grant funds, it
Understood,
has to
okay.
be to a
It
certain.
has,
I think you
Okay.
could have your own, maybe, that's a little
yes,
bit
that's what I
lower.
mean, stuff that.
But yeah, I mean, that has to come to you for discussion, but I'll see if I can find what we came up with and pull that back out and see, where we're at with that. And I have RFP, probably a lot of templates
Would you mind?
Yes.
Thank you.
So let me know what you need, but, because there needs to be all the language in there, like legal mumbo
I'll
jumbo.
take as many as
Okay.
you can give me.
Yeah,
Because you know what, I can write an RFP, but I want it to be,
Yeah, usually
exacting and
what we would
legal.
do is you come up with the scope of work
Yeah.
and that part of it, and
Mm-hmm.
then I put on the back whatever we need for the,
That's fine.
but I'll send you some so you get an idea.
Excellent.
I know the idea of standards came out because in the past, we've had people buy our properties and well, they didn't buy them. Yes, they did. They bought them and renovated them, but they did such a cheap job that
Right.
it was something we didn't want to have our name on. You remember?
Yeah, I do.
I know.
You know,
I mean, down the road, do we get as far as a right to inspect when someone is purchasing a property? Can we say, okay, at an interval of 3 months, 6 months, whatever the time frame might be,
We already have.
but we do have that in there.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's
They
what
have
you're
to,
talking about, right?
yeah, it's in the application, because I wanted everybody to know up front what our requirements are.
Right.
But the basics is within 30 days, you have to pull permits. Within 90 days, we're gonna come in and inspect to make sure that the project is underway. I believe there's 120 or 180 day, because sometimes, usually we like it 1 year from start to finish. But sometimes it doesn't make sense or things happen and we'll extend it. But the most we go is about 18 months. So the time frame is set up so that you get done in that period of time. And we know that progress is happening, because between, I don't know so much in Troy, but in Albany, you get people buying projects and then all of a sudden they haven't started it and it's 9 months later. They haven't gotten approvals, they've done nothing.
Yeah.
And the thing's gonna fall down.
Sure.
So, but yeah, I'll send you the application too.
What's our recourse for those who don't live up to the standard?
We get the property back.
We get it back. Okay.
And if they won't give it back willingly, then, this is all in your contract as well. So I think what I might do too, I know Monica's coming back and Brian, we can give a little, here's our process. I can explain it to everybody. But in the contract, it basically says, if you don't meet any of these requirements, you're required to deed it back to us. If they won't do it willingly, in Albany, I have had to sue a few times when we've gotten it back.
At a loss of money as well? I mean, is there a refund that's involved?
No, they don't get any money back. It's tight. Like you're forfeiting it. And technically we're entitled to attorney's fees, but usually we just want the property back.
Yeah.
And sometimes that's what it takes. I'll start the action and they go, okay. And then it's like a deed in lieu of foreclosure back to us. So, it's not I don't like to do that, but when people just won't deed it over.
Yeah, and we're understanding, I remember one property we had, they were getting sued by somebody homeless who broke in and then fell out of the window. And so that stopped them for a couple of years, and we didn't.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
that's extenuating
That wasn't their
circumstance.
fault, and eventually they finished the building, so,
As long as it's buttoned up,
yeah.
you know what I mean, and it's not deteriorating further, then we have some leeway there. But-
So that would be something in my purview to go back to inspect?
Right, and
project
it's
manager.
required actually by the funding agreements with our grantors.
Okay.
And we have a enforcement note and mortgage that we file on our properties that basically says you screw up, we get the property back. But yes, you would have, and there was a AG, it was an AG or an ABO report about inspections, and one of the land banks got dinged because they weren't doing it. So, yeah, so I'll send it to you, the
We'll do our
schedule.
due diligence.
Yeah.
Okay. Moving right along here, we're on old business. Bookkeeping increase. We sort of covered that, didn't we?
A little bit, but we don't have an increase in funding. But let me just talk real quick about that. So to the point about this Seth and the sprinkler system, we approved at the last meeting to spend up to $1,500 for 2 months, thinking that they would be about $500 per month. They're actually $738 per month. They're asking for a 3-month contract, but there are also 2 things that I didn't think about. The first one being that they would have to do the 2 months that are not August, like June and July. And so they charged us $696, and I approved that, obviously. There was a $150 setup fee that I paid as well. So I've so far paid about $846 for the accounting that we've got so far from them. But the part of the contract that's not approved is the second sheet that I give you. And it's $738 per month for 3 months. And then there's going to be a one-time fee of $771.50. And you'll see the 4 items there: deferred revenue cleanup, an annual adjusting journal entries provided by Bonadio, and chart of account optimization, where basically that means when there's properties that we've sold, they're showing up on our balance sheet, and it's kind of like makes the balance sheet 4 pages, but they probably should just be inactive since we don't own them anymore. And then it'll make your balance sheet maybe 2 pages, 1 page. So they want to do some account optimization that way. And then they need an additional consulting meeting to address outdated journal entries, grant allocation, deferred revenue. So that's the new expense total would be $3,831.50, or we can just vote to approve their quote. Since I already had the $1,500 and I spent $846, we can approve this 3-month quote. And with that approval, I can click the yes button on their portal.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Okay. Hold on 1 second.
You're approving this quote, right?
Yeah, I was trying to look over to see the name of it so I could say it for y'all. I make a motion to approve the quote for capital bookkeeping co-op for $1,500.
Oh no, above it's for just this quote right here.
Okay.
Yep.
For $771.50, correct?
Well,
Or is it that one?
you could probably just make a motion
That's
to
what I
approve
said.
quote number
For the-
58 right there.
Yeah, for 3 months and the one-time fee.
Yep.
I make a motion to approve capital bookkeeping co-op for quote 58 for 3 months plus the fee.
And Brian has seconded. Okay, all in favor? Aye. Okay, pass.
All right. Progress on new board members. You want me to take on that one?
Sure.
Okay, so we're still waiting for 3 mayoral appointees. I know they're getting a lot done tomorrow at a council meeting, so I'm sure they're busy. Still hopeful that we see those appointees. There's 2 school district appointees. Jamie might know a little bit about that.
So I spoke with someone from Lansingburg. Their superintendent did not approve of his appointment, but is considering appointing Andrea Henkel, right?
Yeah.
So she is their school board president, so I will follow back up on that. I will circle back and talk to Mr. Carmelo before the end of the week to see what he thinks about an appointment. I would plan on speaking to him to see if he would consider Tamara DiMartino as his appointment. So I'll see how he receives that.
So what was the reason that we needed school reps?
It's in the
It's
local law.
It's in the law. Okay.
Yeah, you could amend the local law through city council charter. And if you remember the land bank symposium, the attorney, John Sid, said he doesn't believe any land bank is using the school or the school districts in their board appointments. But I didn't want to raise my hand as a new attendee and be like, by the way, we do that. So I told him afterwards that according to that, we're the only land bank that uses schools to appoint board members. And Monica shared with me one time, and you're probably just about to say this, that there's a proper school tax thing that could be passed as local law to allow us to keep some of the school tax for a while. So she wanted to have them be part of the conversation.
There's a section in the nonprofit law of the Land Bank Act about, they call it 50/5. So if you remember, and you might, because you've been around with me since 2016, but the section of the Land Bank Act basically says that if you can agree with the school district, they collect the taxes and we get 50% over a 5-year period. But the municipality has to opt into that. So, you know, it's unlikely. Most municipalities these days, you know, it would be unlikely. Then I think that's why they put them on. But you don't really have to. It was just to have representation if that issue came up.
Kate, have you ever has this board ever had anybody from Lansing School District?
From Lansingburg?
Yeah.
No.
We had one for a hot minute.
Because he was, their new super was on when the person I spoke with who went to his superior, I believe it's a new super down there. It wasn't even aware that he had it.
Yeah,
So.
I mean, we had John Carmelo up until
That's
the end of
Troy.
last year. Yeah,
Yes.
Yeah, so
and we, for about 3 months, we had
Had
someone from
girl,
Lansingburg, and then she just never showed
When was
up.
that?
I remember she used to sit over there in the room, and I don't remember her name at all. But
I mean,
it
I have
didn't
no
last
recollection of
long.
that, but
If you wound up with people, you certainly, you know, it was designed to get some sustainability, some sustainable funding for the land bank. And, you know, you could broach that discussion, especially if you had 2 people on the board that were willing to work on it, you know, but, you know, it's politics, so I don't know.
yeah.
And the Land Bank Association made it sound like no land bank has been able to make headway with that as an option. So it really hasn't panned out to much. So there is, if the school districts don't want to appoint, we could ask city council, you know, probably with their blessing so they don't feel snubbed, to just remove those so that it's easier for us to make quorum and do business. Because the Land Bank Association did add that we have a large board. 11 is a large board. They consider 7 or 9 to be better.
Okay, we're having a long one here, so let's roll.
Yeah, I gotta get moving.
We know about the owls, so we can skip that one. Website, I hope everyone had a chance to look at the website. I forgot to send it to you, I'm
I did
sorry. I will do that.
Thank you, Suzanne.
Anybody comments? I know Andrew had some comments.
I sent a couple. Yeah. I mean, it looks really good. I think, which I saw other people say too. So
Yeah, Joe said he just needs, you know, all the stuff to import, and of course we have to redo our photographs and sales, because we have, who knows, you know, we've been so out of touch with that. So it's all good. It should be done as soon as he can load up whatever we give him that he can't pull off of the old site. So,
Sure.
you know, hopefully that will be soon. And
If I may interrupt,
sure.
regarding the logo and website, et cetera, I don't know if the designer has done it yet, but maybe a standards manual for the logo. So that, again, back to branding, that we look the way we're supposed to look in all aspects.
Gotcha.
Looks like Brian.
yeah, it'd be helpful to have like the color codes and
Well, that's it,
things.
yeah.
So
Simple
if
standards.
someone
I
else
think
gets involved,
She's done that.
I'm
I
sure
think.
she's got it.
Yeah,
but
she
Yeah.
sent it to me.
That's great. Oh, I'm unaware of that.
Yeah, I like it.
yeah, it's very nicely done.
Okay.
It looks like during the meeting, Brian emailed to say that he thinks some of the colors and fonts on the site and logo may want to be adjusted since we are rebranding.
Mhm.
He was
Yeah, we
asking
can
for
always-
the process for taking comments and making edits.
Okay, I'll send around an email. Okay, new business. Code was called about 7 and 9 Park.
Yeah, they called as a courtesy. You know, Whaley's been doing the first, say, 100 feet of the 150-foot property. So essentially where the building used to be and the front lawn was, Whaley's been cutting, and then where the back lawn was, they've sort of ignored. That's upstate custom remodels. And again, you know, truthfully and transparently, I don't think that they are a company that does grass cutting, considering their name is remodels, and we don't have any documentation showing a contract. They don't have a contract. So it is my opinion that we should eventually RFP maybe in the spring, since we've already got people working now. But code the people in the neighborhood on 7th that adjoin that property are annoyed that the vines and growth are growing through the fence and into their yard and taking over the fence. So the quote from Trey's was $800 to essentially cut the backyards up to the fence lines, not anything over like 4, 5, 6 inches. Leave the trees alone, but just cut the rest of the lawns that are about 2 feet tall. And then I asked them to throw in 871 River Street as a quote for if anybody knows that building. Obviously, we're considering tearing it down, but right now there's a tree that grows over the bus stop and almost makes it a little shaded area. There's mattresses there, homeless people sleep there. So his quote is to remove the fencing, remove the mattresses, remove the overgrowth, and so you'll just see a building with no greenery higher than 6 inches or so.
Is that River and Glad?
It's the large land banked
Yeah.
development that we have. That's this quote. It says Trey's on it if anybody needs to see it. It's the last page in here.
Okay.
And that's a one time.
That's a one time, yeah.
So
If you've never been, you can go down and check it out.
I mean, the
Again,
clean out and obviously and like removing the fence and all that kind of stuff. I was
Yeah,
thinking
looks
it
like
stuff keeps growing.
well, right. But if we haven't realized this, but Upstate Custom Remodels has been billing us for a lot of years for this address, 871, but really been cutting 102 West Glen, 879 and 881. So there's 4 properties there, and they charge us $75 for the 3 lots and then $50 for 871, but they haven't done anything. The trees there are 15, 20 feet tall. So I took that off his list of things to cut because he wasn't cutting it. He was just billing us for it. Rather use the property maintenance money in the LBI 1 fund for actual property maintenance, not just him getting paid to look at it.
So is this over the cap, or is this something you can just do?
No, I don't have a budget at all. So
Okay.
technically anything that you guys haven't already approved.
And you can get this back without LBI money?
Yeah.
I make a motion to approve the quote for $3,050 from Trey's Lawn Care to manicure 79 Park Ave and 871 River Street. So he's gonna get that right up to the siding, correct?
Yeah,
All that crap is
right.
on?
If you haven't seen any of the work he's done so far,
No, I
Yeah.
have. I didn't know when it says in here metal and wooden fence. I wanted right up to the only thing left
no,
is
I
4 walls.
want to take the fence down. Yeah.
Yes, 4 walls.
He
of the
did that.
building.
He did that at Glen as well. There was 2 layers of fence. He took down 1 layer.
And then whoever's manicuring, who's ever maintaining the lawn can now maintain straight.
Right. And to give context, some of the properties that I call it gutted, the backyards, the overgrowth was so dense that it's all just down to dirt. There isn't anything to manicure anymore. You're not going to have to cut like 3209 7th Ave. You saw the picture or video with the garbage. That is all down to dirt. So it's going to take some birds dropping seeds to germinate and then actually start growing. So there's not going to be a repetitive maintenance just yet.
The detailed knowledge you have of each property is just,
Yeah.
right? Am I right?
We should be
I'm
thankful
very
when we get
impressed.
a bill
Yeah.
from the code.
It's great.
Let's vote on this
You get a
and
courtesy call.
get that over with. So all in favor of Trey's Lawn Care?
All right.
Aye. Okay. So I agree. I just want to say I'm blown away by both you guys and all the new board members here and not here. And, we're on a roll again, which is really great. Thank you. Okay, any other business?
I guess the only thing to mention is yesterday I DocuSigned to take Tony Tozzi off the Northern New York or Northern Credit Union account and put myself on it. They sent the DocuSign at 5 p.m. so I couldn't call them to give me online access. So I don't know what it is, but
Okay, great.
Yep.
I'm sure you'll let us know.
I plan to do it when the board meeting's over.
Yeah. Okay, is there a motion to adjourn?
All motion.
Okay,
Second.
second? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, everyone. Really good meeting.
Yeah. Great to hear about so much.
Brad, you're going to the office?
Yeah.
Real late.